In the world of martial arts, a legend has been passed down through generations about the existence of a leader's spirit. This spirit causes chaos in the world, destroying everything, and seeks someone worthy to inherit the leader's duties and continue the journey to the summit. That heir is the successor of the Fire Dragon clan, a young man named Big John. Like many others, he believed the legend to be nothing more than a fairy tale. However, everything changed when the spirit from the legend chose him. Suddenly, he possessed extraordinary power, making him unbeatable. He believed he would achieve the pinnacle of the magical world, but reality proved to be vastly different. After years of bloodshed and brutal trials to attain leadership, the spirit decided to stop supporting him. Big John became an old, sorrowful man, unable to understand why the spirit no longer responded as it once did. He kept questioning why the spirit within him had ceased to guide him but found no answers. One day, the kingdom's chief scientist brought him good news. They had finally succeeded and presented him with a prototype experiment, along with an elixir of glory he had always dreamed of. The prototype was the first to survive their horrific experiments, but the unfortunate child had turned into a true monster in the process. Despite this, the child's mind remained stable and unbroken. He was ready to do anything to take revenge on those who had destroyed his family. Of course, his body was treated like trash, deemed unworthy of speech. The child was weak and unable to fight back. The mad scientist was proud of this achievement, boasting that the prototype could live for months without a drop of water or a morsel of food. But the aging Big John was unimpressed, bored of waiting with no real results. After years of waiting and suffering, all the scientist could produce was a flawed monster. The scientist pleaded with the old Big John for more time, promising that with enough time, he could create the true elixir. However, Big John was done waiting. This was his last chance. Using magic, he forced the scientist to drink the elixir he had created. The scientist couldn't understand why his own hand moved against his will and could do nothing to stop it. In the end, the scientist himself transformed into a monster, like the thousands of victims of his experiments. The dying Big John coughed up blood, with only one question lingering. Why did the leader's spirit no longer answer? He knew the spirit was still within him and continued begging it to reveal the secrets of power and the path to the magical body. Finally, the spirit answered, but not in the way he had hoped. The spirit said he had squandered his chance. The true body had already manifested and was ready to exact vengeance. The child was on the brink of fulfilling his goal, just one step away from completing his revenge. And that marked the end of Big John. He was not the hero of this story. The spirit turned to the young man and asked a single question. Do you hate this world that destroyed your family? If the answer was yes, the spirit promised to help him exact revenge on the entire world. The clan members in the castle felt the danger emanating from the palace. They didn't understand what the red aura was, but they saw the body of their leader and his killer. They immediately decided to attack the young man, not realizing that defeating him was impossible. Instead, the spirits set a condition. To gain this power, the boy had to destroy all the great forces in the world and absorb their strength. Thus, a monster with unparalleled power was born, one no one could match. When that day came, he would achieve supreme enlightenment. On that day, the Blood Demon clan was utterly annihilated, and no sword could stop the young man. He was the true hero of this tale, the true Blood Demon, and the man wearing a straw hat, walking his lonely path, was a formidable figure, bearing the title of the Sword Emperor. Yes, the title was impressive, but it didn't mean he was invincible. And now, you will see why. The Sword Emperor was on a journey to meet one of his oldest friends from a clan called the Fire Dragon clan. Upon entering the palace, he met the clan leader, Bake Morang. With him were powerful members from other clans, strong and intimidating individuals. Among them was a man with a scarred face named Yujbai, the Fist King, a girl standing beside him named Jinxia, the Northern Empress, and an old, bald man, the Monk Hyan. The reason for this gathering of powerhouses was to defeat one individual. Several renowned clans of this martial arts era had already been destroyed by a single expert. No one knew his motives or identity, but those who encountered him on the road called him the Mad Demon, a man obsessed with combat. Today, the Sword Emperor and the Fire Dragon clan gathered to put an end to this madness. While they were still discussing the man in question, a truly insane figure suddenly appeared before them. Standing outside the palace, he wasted no time and entered with heavy strides, unwrapping the scarf covering his face. Coldly, he remarked that he could smell the scent of immense power emanating from this place. Upon entering, he saw the 5 great leaders assembled. It seemed they had indeed been anticipating this moment. The Sword Emperor looked at him and realized that the title Mad Demon was no empty boast. The aura radiating from him was reminiscent of the demon leaders, so intense that the old man's instincts made him feel as though he was standing before a demon lord himself. The old man, however, was not one to waste time. Drawing his sword, he unleashed an overwhelming power that enveloped the entire place. With lightning speed, he launched one of his most deadly techniques. In an instant, the old man sliced the mad demon into several pieces. After the attack, he calmly sheathed his sword as if nothing had happened, leaving the demon's severed remains scattered across the ground. The Fist King gave a bitter smile, remarking that it was over before it even began. He mocked all the rumors about the mad demon, calling them nonsense. Yet, despite his feigned composure, the other leaders' expressions were grave, enough to unsettle him. Then, they heard the voice of the mad demon, who seemed delighted to have finally encountered a worthy opponent. The Fist King's smile vanished as he realized the mad demon was still alive. What was more shocking was that the severed parts of his body began to reattach themselves as though nothing had happened. The Fist King didn't just lose his smile, he started sweating in fear, his eyes wide in disbelief. Baekmorang was equally stunned, unable to comprehend what he was witnessing. He had heard legends of a technique called the True Body, which supposedly allowed someone to revive. To him, it had always been just a rumor, but now he saw it with his own eyes and couldn't deny that the legend was true all along. After the mad demon reassembled himself, he decided it was time to act. The Fist King shouted for the Sword Emperor to flee, but it was clear the old man could not move. The attack he had unleashed using his sword technique had been met with a counter from the mad demon that was too powerful. His stomach was nearly split open, his entrails visible, and within moments, he collapsed to the ground, taking his last breath. The mad demon then began walking toward them with heavy steps, a sly grin on his face, and said, "Which one of you wants to die next?" Baekmorang was consumed by anger and tension. Meanwhile, the woman with him stated that it was time for Baekmorang, as the leader of the Fire Dragon clan, to come up with a plan to deal with this. However, Baekmorang was at a loss on how to confront such a calamity. He said he had seen something similar in ancient texts, but wasn't sure about the details, making him exceedingly cautious. On the other hand, the Fist King's patience was wearing thin as time dragged on. Seeing the Sword Emperor lying dead on the ground, rage filled him, unleashing a destructive energy that grew more terrifying by the second. Baek realized that the Fist King was on the verge of exploding with anger, and everyone tried to calm him, but it was clear he had lost control. Clenching his fists, it felt as if the entire world was about to shatter. He charged at the mad demon, who stood there laughing mockingly. The punch landed with full force, and the impact was so devastating that the ground beneath them was completely destroyed. The mad demon's body began to crack under the powerful blow, and fiery energy spread throughout the area. Baekmorang had never doubted the Fist King's strength, admitting that the punch was incredible, but he also believed the mad demon wouldn't fall so easily. And he was right. The mad demon was still standing despite the massive hole in his abdomen, and the Fist King began to lose his composure. He couldn't believe the mad demon was still alive after such a deadly blow. Worse still, the mad demon's power seemed to grow stronger. The mad demon acknowledged the Fist King's punch as formidable and assured him that he would make good use of that energy. At that moment, the mad demon began emanating the same destructive energy as the Fist King and initiated the exploding fist technique. As the explosion subsided, it was revealed that Old Master Abu Tayan had sacrificed himself at the last moment to save the Fist King. He had taken the full force of the mad demon's attack, losing both his arms in the process. The mad demon felt annoyed and angry because the old man appeared at the wrong time. The old leader was furious to see such arrogance from the demon. At first, the mad demon considered himself powerful and behaved recklessly, but he gazed at the old man with a sly smile, claiming that he now controlled everything. He offered a choice, to fight or retreat, leaving it up to the old man. The King of Fists felt guilty and apologized to the old leader, admitting his mistake. However, the old leader replied that there was no need for guilt. What mattered now was focusing on destroying the demon without any distractions. At that moment, the mad demon fell silent for a moment, but suddenly, a wicked smile reappeared on his face. He was thrilled at the thought that he might possess an indestructible body, capable of withstanding the power of the King of Fists. Quickly, he launched an attack on the old leader's seemingly robust body, eager to test its strength. However, before he could strike, the Northern Queen intervened, wielding her icy weapon and spreading frost energy around the area. Instead of feeling fear, the mad demon looked on in awe and delight, finally witnessing the martial arts of the Northern Ice Palace, which he had long considered a mere rumor. The woman spoke coldly, "Stop boasting," but the mad demon only laughed inwardly, thinking her tone was as piercing as bone-chilling ice. The mad demon admitted that the 5 great masters of the world truly lived up to their reputations. Each had mastered martial arts at the highest level, earning his genuine respect. At that moment, Baekmorang decided it was his turn to join the battle. Walking confidently, he said, "You haven't seen the martial arts of the Fire Dragon clan leader yet." With swift movements, he struck the mad demon with a lightning-fast blow, though everyone knew it wouldn't be enough to defeat him. The mad demon merely laughed. From the seemingly futile efforts of the Fire Dragon clan leader, Beck Morang suddenly surprised him with shocking news, declaring that he would be trapped in darkness forever. Suddenly, ribbon-like strands emerged from his chest, wrapping around the mad demon's body in an unexpected manner. The demon struggled to break free, but the ribbons bound him so quickly that he was soon wrapped head to toe, completely weakened. He now resembled a mummy, trapped in those bindings forever. The old man couldn't believe his eyes and exclaimed in amazement, "I've never seen a battle like this before." The Fire Dragon clan leaders explained to him that this rare technique was passed down only to the clan's leaders, a powerful art that trapped anyone affected by it in eternal darkness. This was why the Fire Dragon clan leaders were always vigilant and prepared for any possibility. If the mad demon ever tried to escape, they would be ready to fight him again. 3,000 years passed, and the world had changed completely. Technology was everywhere. Machines and robots worked in every corner. Despite the rapid passage of time, the mad demon who once terrorized the entire continent remained imprisoned in his bindings. With GPS guidance, we find ourselves in a place called Zone 3 Factory within a giant technological tower. People went about their daily lives. Among them, we see a young man with a bright face and a wide smile, Mark, working with the Earth exploration team. As he stood there, someone in a neat suit asked, "Are you the only one from the advanced team here?" Mark laughed and replied, "No, there's someone else with me," pointing to his left shoulder toward a calm woman with glasses walking steadily. That woman was Lena, the quiet and slightly eccentric team leader. As they entered a particular gate, she removed her glasses, revealing a wide smile on her face, as if she had been eagerly awaiting this moment. Finally, she had arrived on a planet she utterly despised. Mark quickly ran after her with a smile and said, "Look, what do you think of this world? It feels like we're on vacation until the main team arrives." But Lena was unimpressed by his jokes and carefree attitude. Responding with boredom, "Did you come here to have fun?" Mark replied that there wasn't much else they could do at the moment, so they might as well enjoy the time until the main team arrived. As they walked, Mark suddenly expressed his surprise, saying he was astonished that Lena agreed to join this GPS team, especially since she usually felt exhausted just thinking about extraterrestrial beings. Now, she was in a place filled with creatures from across the universe. He added a few more words, saying that there were beings here that could never be found on Earth. However, Lena stopped, stared at him, and said, "Don't underestimate these creatures. I don't want to get caught because of your negligence." But Mark pretended not to hear her, and replied that she shouldn't take things too seriously. "The world has changed more than you can imagine," he said. He began to explain that in this tournament, everyone was considered equal, with no distinction between beings. However, Lena was unmoved by his words and stared back at him, saying, "Do you think they see themselves as equals to humans? They are arrogant beings." Still, Mark continued joking in front of her until Lena firmly said, "You take care of the exhibition hall, and I'll handle the rest." As expected, Mark took her words differently and asked why she said that. Lena grew increasingly annoyed, took a deep breath, and said, "What do you even like about these disgusting aliens?" Suddenly, the surrounding aliens glared at them sharply. Mark quickly tried to defuse the situation and said, "Watch your words. Sure, we're supposed to be equals, but things can get complicated." Strangely enough, the usually carefree Mark, who didn't think much of aliens, was now the one trying to prepare her. But it seemed Lena had deliberately said what she said. Torin pointed out that no matter how strict the rules were, these beings could still be dangerous. He remarked that while laws might try to make everyone equal, discrimination always exists. He cited America as an example. He sighed and explained that if someone were described in offensive terms, it was natural for them to feel offended. Suddenly, they arrived at an important location ahead. He said this was the only place where humans could truly face aliens on the same GPS level, the arena of Zone 3, where the tournament was held. As they entered, a loud voice boomed from a massive alien, saying, "Welcome, everyone, to this planet." He explained that this was the largest cosmic festival, occurring once every 100 years. It was considered an opportunity for every civilization to elevate their status before other planets. This opportunity came through the AFGPS battle tournament. At this, Mark smiled and told Lena that the real reason he came here was to watch the tournament, not for anything else. Lena responded that she was here to uncover their enemies' weaknesses. Of course, her words made no sense to Mark, as he couldn't understand what Lena was talking about. The battle was about to begin, and the participants were announced. On one side was a fiery alien ranked 973rd in the civilization classification, named Aji, while on the other side was his opponent, ranked between 96th and 30th in the same classification, representing the Bijou civilization, named Bainan. The announcer declared the start of Group 6 elimination round, beginning with the match between Aji and Bainan. Before we see the fight, the scene shifted to the GPS area of the third planet, specifically in the Hall of Showcases. There, we saw two men in suits who initially looked like robots. The first man walked past the mad demon, who had been chained for 3,000 years. He paused and stared at it, as though something had caught his attention. His companion called out to him, urging them not to waste time and to move on. However, he heard a strange sound coming from the mad demon's chamber and asked his companion if he had heard it too. The stakes here were incredibly high, as it was said that the winning civilization would gain the truth about everything and be freed from negative effects such as disease, hunger, and war. For Earth, this tournament was crucial. The United Earth government was incredibly proud to have qualified for participation and sent their strongest representatives, Earth's greatest fighters. People on Earth were excited and confident that reaching the finals would be easy and that winning the tournament was not impossible. In the arena, the battle was underway, and everyone was captivated by Aji, who displayed his immense power as a member of the living flame species. Once unchained, the entire arena ignited in flames. Bainin, from the Bijou civilization, stood paralyzed, unsure of what to do, stunned and terrified by the fiery power. Spectators on Aji's side cheered for him, and the announcer couldn't hide his excitement. Everyone was thrilled and rallied behind the fiery warrior, who had now become immensely popular, unsurprisingly emerging as the favorite. Bainin stood in disappointment, feeling as though everyone was against him. At the same time, Aji confidently seized Bainin with a firm grip and unleashed flames that engulfed the entire area. People were in disbelief at the terrifying extent of his power. The announcer enthusiastically remarked that Aji's flames were legendary for melting even the strongest ships, and now he was filling the sky with extraordinary strength. There was no longer any doubt. Aji was immensely powerful, and a simple civilization like Bijou's had little hope of standing against him. Mark and Lena stood tense, witnessing the immense display of power. Mark even asked Lena how they could possibly fight a monster like that, growing more convinced that searching for a weakness was a futile endeavor. Lena admitted that perhaps they were of no use in this mission. However, not everything was as bleak as it seemed. Lena noticed something important amidst the chaos. There were no alien creatures on the 3rd level or higher, and her attention shifted sharply to that discovery. As for the ongoing match, it seemed like an ordinary battle, though in truth, the tournament had the potential to determine the fate of entire civilizations. Yet, for a first-class civilization like this, the land seemed meaningless. Lena, however, had a cunning idea. She planned to exploit their arrogance for her advantage. If no one was paying attention to them, they could operate in secrecy and turn it against their opponents. Lena continued to observe, searching for any new clues that might help. Suddenly, someone asked her, "Why do we have to do all this?" Not long after, a small girl from a civilization called Bijou appeared, crying. She looked devastated because her civilization's hero had suffered a crushing defeat. Trying to encourage her, Lena said, "Focus and do your best," to lift her spirits. Mark watched and thought about how unfortunate their civilization was to face one of the top players from the 3rd level. Time passed, and the blazing fire in the arena began to subside. However, Bainin vanished without a trace. At that moment, someone from a higher-tier civilization appeared and began to mock Bainin, calling him trash and claiming he had likely turned to ash. Mark could only sigh and think to himself, there's always someone like this who shows up just to ruin things and cause trouble. He decided to inform Lena so they could move on. But the young girl from the Bijou civilization grew angry about what was happening. She couldn't stay silent while someone insulted her hero. The man, seated arrogantly in the back row, wiped his drink from his face with disdain and said, "You're a different kind, completely uncultured." The girl retorted, "You're the one who has no respect." Mark tried to tell Lena that they needed to leave immediately, as staying could drag them into further trouble. But Lena was too absorbed in what she was doing to notice what was happening around her. Suddenly, the rude man threw an empty can to the ground and said something inappropriate to the little girl. He even threatened to teach her how to speak to others. The girl stepped back, frightened, feeling trapped and unable to move. The man, already large, began to grow even larger before her eyes. Mark, now furious, shouted to get Lena's attention. Finally, his yell snapped Lena out of her focus. She looked ahead and saw the man who had been mocking the little girl transform into a massive monster, his face full of hatred. The man arrogantly declared that he could destroy their planet's representative in just 10 seconds. It turned out that this man wasn't from an ordinary civilization. He hailed from a civilization called Pixie, ranked 1,300th, and his name was Mr. Picky. Lena stared at him and said mockingly, "Are you really proud of showing off your strength to a little girl?" Her words stung like fire in his ears. He demanded to know what she meant. Lena, with a sharp tone, replied, "It's pathetic to act this way, as if you're above everyone else." Mr. Picky felt angry and insulted by her words. He started moving toward Lena, but Mark tried to push Lena away to protect her. However, Lena continued to taunt him, asking if he would really abandon his team over something like this. Amid the tension, a drone appeared, commanding, "Stop right there." Surprisingly, Mr. Picky immediately looked nervous at the sight of the drone. Lena calmly revealed that the drone was a security drone patrolling the arena, and that no one could cause trouble inside the stadium as long as those drones were present. The drone asked if there was any damage caused by Pixie. Lena seized the moment with sarcasm, saying she wouldn't claim Pixie endangered anyone, but mentioning how he began flexing his muscles while drinking something. She expressed disgust so strongly that she couldn't finish her sentence, ultimately deciding not to escalate the matter further. The drone questioned Pixie about the accusation, but Pixie looked confused and couldn't respond, as it was precisely what he had done. Lena continued her verbal attack, pressing Pixie to admit he had been showing off his muscles in front of them. She even added fuel to the fire, muttering that she hoped Pixie would try the same act in front of the security officers. Pixie looked on the verge of growling in anger, while Mark whispered to Lena, asking why she was doing this. His expression clearly showed his frustration, but Lena explained that by telling the truth now, the situation would de-escalate, and Pixie wouldn't face any consequences. In other words, she was punishing him in her own way. Pixie overheard, or perhaps Lena deliberately made sure he did, and Mark urged Lena to drop the matter and stop provoking Pixie further. After hearing Lena's explanation, the drone asked Pixie again if he really intended to show off his muscles in front of everyone. At that moment, Pixie grinned and said, "Yes, I wanted to show them off." He then returned to his normal size and explained that he simply wanted to display his muscles and had done nothing wrong. Without much more to say, he quickly ran off, promising to meet those annoying creatures again. Mark seemed utterly stunned by the incident, clearly exhausted by the ordeal and not wanting Pixie to keep haunting him like a bad dream. Perhaps he didn't want to see Pixie again at all. He then asked Lena if she had expected such an outcome. Lena replied confidently, reminding Mark that she wasn't reckless enough to provoke a monster like that without thinking it through. At that moment, a young girl from Big Civilization approached and thanked them for their help. However, Lena looked at her coldly, with an air of superiority, and asked when exactly she had helped. Lena told the girl to leave because she was distracting her. Mark seemed like he would need a long time to understand what was going through Lena's mind. Nevertheless, Mark patted the girl's head and told her to go home, but the girl suddenly pulled her hand away as if she didn't want to be touched by a coward like Mark. It became clear why Lena had given the girl such a deadly stare. In the end, all creatures respect the strong and look down on the weak. At the same time, Mark couldn't understand why Lena treated him like that, especially since fear was a natural reaction in such situations, and Lena herself had been scared. Lena then called him a coward and told him to be quiet. The crowd in the arena began to cheer, urging the hero of Big Civilization to come out of hiding and prove himself as a true hero. The commentator couldn't resist remarking on all the criticism directed at Bannon. However, Lena already knew the outcome of the battle before it began because she understood that a third-tier civilization was far stronger than a first-tier one. Aji laughed boisterously, mocking his opponent for hiding like a mouse. But Lena began to wonder if humans on Earth had any chance against monsters like these. As she thought about it, defeat seemed inevitable, yet she couldn't deny the reality. Meanwhile, Mark failed to grasp the gravity of the situation. He seemed unconcerned, even laughing uncontrollably. He asked why Lena looked so anxious, and she replied that there was nothing to worry about. At that moment, the commentator suddenly exclaimed with excitement as Bannon reappeared. This shocked Lena, as it meant humans from Earth might actually stand a chance against these monsters. Bannon leaped from a height, and despite his burned face, he struck down, landing directly on Aji's head. The commentator announced that the blow was a decisive strike that defeated Aji. However, Mark seemed preoccupied with his phone. After hearing something from the person on the other end, he began biting his nails in fear. Lena, on the other hand, started to grasp what the announcer was saying, that Aji couldn't move after that hit. Mark turned to her and said, "That's not the issue," alluding to what the caller mentioned. A problem at the exhibition requiring Lena to come immediately. Here, we learn that it was a breakout by a crazed demon. Lena asked him if he had double-checked the items at the exhibition, and Mark assured her that he had. Still, Lena had a gut feeling from the start that something would go wrong, especially when Mark excitedly talked about their vacation. Unfortunately, her worries proved true. Mark remarked that it was strange since nothing should have gone wrong. At the same time, we see someone hiding behind a pillar. Unsurprisingly, it was Peaky, seeking revenge. But Lena and Mark walked as if they didn't care. Lena even seemed pleased with the outcome, unable to believe they had won against the monster. This gave her a slight boost in confidence. Perhaps not all alien creatures were as powerful as she thought. Before they could continue their journey, Peaky ambushed Mark, taking him away. All Lena felt was a light breeze before a hand touched the back of her head. The scene then shifted to GSP Planet, Zone 3, in the planet's promotion center. Lena slowly opened her eyes and saw Peaky dragging someone. One of them was carrying an injured Mark, while another yanked Lena's hair. Lena called out for Mark to wake up, which caught Peaky's attention. The large man pulling her hair tugged harder, causing her pain. He told her that if she screamed for the man, she needn't worry. They weren't done with him yet. Lena trembled in fear and asked the man if he was doing all this just because she had joked with him. She reminded them that they were on GSP planet and security should arrive soon. However, Peaky told her that most of the security systems relied on their technology, and he had already disabled every device in the building. He asked her if her brain could comprehend what he had just said. The woman grew furious and told the aliens that they had brought this on themselves. She never wanted to join the Federation, especially given all the disasters they had caused. Millions of humans on Earth were still dying in horrific suffering, yet the Federation had done nothing to help. As she spoke, the aliens fell silent for a moment before one burst into hysterical laughter. They mocked her condition and suffering, saying, "Do you think the Federation is a charity? Do you think they want to help you?" Their laughter grew louder as they ridiculed the idea that humanity still struggled with infectious diseases. They found it shocking that humans lived this way, thinking such beings should already be museum artifacts. Suddenly, they heard a familiar voice. "You're the ones who brought me here." It was the voice of a madman. Last he remembered, he was in a Shaolin temple, but now he found himself in an entirely different place, luxurious like a private suite in a grand hotel. Lena was puzzled since the man's words sounded human, while the aliens didn't understand a single thing he said. They demanded he speak in their language. The madman realized not only had the decor changed, but he was in a completely different place with beings who couldn't speak his language. Lena realized this was an advantage, as she could speak in a way the aliens wouldn't understand. Quickly, she shouted to him, urging him to go to security since the aliens were violating Federation laws. Before she could finish, the large alien stomped on her head to silence her. Seeing the brute attack Lena enraged the madman. Thrilled that at least something remained familiar, he wasted no time. He directed a powerful attack, Whirlwind Fist, at the alien's stomach. The first pixie was obliterated, and the second met the same fate in the subsequent blow. All that remained of the pixies were a hand still gripping Lena and a pair of legs reduced to mangled remains. The madman laughed again, flashing a wicked grin, and said, "Don't even think about running. I've got a few questions for you. If you try to escape, I'll kill you." At that moment, Lena tried to ask a few questions as well, but the madman couldn't understand anything she said because she was speaking in a language from the new era. Her questions made no sense to him. Lena asked how he could possess such great power without special tools and how he created that explosion. However, the madman roughly grabbed her hair and sharply said, "If you don't speak clearly, you will die here." Lena quickly realized he didn't understand her language, so she decided to answer his questions instead of trying to ask her own. The madman first asked, "Where are we now?" Lena replied that they were in the enhancement building on the street. But he didn't understand and repeated his question, asking if this was the Shaolin Temple. Soon after, he realized the atmosphere and energy of the place were nothing like the Shaolin Temple. He knew that if this were the Shaolin Temple, the monks wouldn't be making such a ruckus. Lena felt confused and began questioning his identity, sensing that he might be from Earth. She wanted to know how he obtained his powers without special tools or technology and how he created that explosion. However, he still didn't understand her questions. Once again, he grabbed Lena's hair roughly and asked why she kept joking around. Lena pushed his hand away and said, "Introduce yourself first." He didn't understand why she demanded that, as he saw himself as the greatest warrior in the universe. But Lena responded, "I don't know who you are and I don't care." Then, she noticed the angry glare of one of the pixies approaching them. However, the madman remained unaffected. He simply said, "You're all bothering me." The pixie was shocked and immediately heightened its power for the next attack. But the madman not only easily blocked the attack, he retaliated with a strike twice as powerful, causing the pixie's eyes to nearly pop out of their sockets. The man couldn't control his emotions. With a single punch, he sent the pixie flying into the air. Meanwhile, Lena was utterly terrified, cold sweat dripping down her body. What was happening was far beyond her imagination. Not only did this insane demon block the pixie's attack with one hand, but he also turned his gaze to Lena and asked, "Do you still not know who I am?" Lena was confused. Her mind raced as she tried to figure out whether this person was famous on Earth. Given the power he displayed, it seemed almost impossible that he wasn't known. Without thinking, Lena apologized and said she didn't know who he was because she rarely stayed on Earth, spending most of her time on other planets. The man was shocked by her statement and became even angrier. Lena tried to explain again that she didn't have much time for Earth due to her work. At that moment, Mark regained consciousness. He looked around, then approached Lena and asked what was going on. Lena was relieved that he was awake, but at the same time, she felt uneasy as the situation became more complicated than she had anticipated. The madman was deeply annoyed by the presence of weaklings around him and asked, "Where did all of you come from?" Mark immediately asked who the man was. Lena grew even more puzzled because even Mark didn't recognize him. Mark then asked if the man was famous or something. But once again, Lena directed her question to the madman. Though she thanked him for saving her, she said cooperation would be difficult if he didn't reveal who he was. The madman laughed wickedly and said, "I am the great mage in wool, destroyer of the 4 great clans." Of course, Lena and Mark had no idea if that was supposed to be important or not. Mark couldn't hold himself back and said, "That's a ridiculous name. Absolutely ridiculous." But Lena thought for a moment and told herself that perhaps this man was the figure humanity had been searching for. However, at that moment, the defeated pixie was preparing to attack again. The ground trembled with rage, and the pixie thought to itself, "Asterisk, did I lose in front of this trash?" Asterisk, its voice was full of anger and disbelief, as it couldn't accept that all of this was truly happening. But since Mark was still dazed and unaware of what had transpired, he had no idea why they were there or for what purpose. He wondered if they had come because of the incident at the stadium. The monster seethed with anger, with strange energy gathering within itself. It muttered, "Asterisk, if only I didn't have this restraining device. I could have easily destroyed them all." Mark felt overwhelmed by the situation and decided to flee before something worse happened. At the same time, Jinwoo stood in front of the monster, unfazed and indifferent to its words. There was no reaction from Jinwoo to what he had heard. Lena called out to Jinwoo and said, "Asterisk, maybe you can defeat this monster because the device suppressing its power is still active." Asterisk. Those words caught Jinwoo's attention, and he smirked slyly, pleased with the idea. He felt contempt for the monster, knowing it had been hiding its strength. It was hard for him to believe it was fighting with limited capabilities. Jinwoo began to approach the monster with a clear intent to erase it from existence. However, Lena tried to stop him, saying, "Asterisk, maybe we can get some information from it first." Asterisk. But Mark was not fond of the situation and warned Lena, "Asterisk, stop messing around. This is a dangerous monster." Asterisk. Lena agreed but said, "Asterisk, I feel this is our chance to learn something important before things get worse." Asterisk. Mark quickly decided to flee, unable to bear the situation. Lena, on the other hand, chose to stay and observe the battle, determined not to let this event pass unnoticed. While Mark's escape made it clear he was not a fighter, Lena didn't hold it against him. She understood the risks of standing in front of the monster, but also saw it as an opportunity. Meanwhile, Jinwoo began to reveal his true strength. The monster felt as if the world was mocking him, unable to believe that someone from a first-tier civilization could stand against him. He said his previous defeat was due to the device suppressing his power. Determined to show his true might, he destroyed the device. After the device was shattered, the monster began to grow in an unnatural manner. Golden light exploded around it in massive waves. The sight filled Lena with fear. It was the first time she had seen a creature unleashing its power without any restraints. Shockingly, the creature was a member of the Cosmos species, known for their ability to manipulate metal freely. All the metal on Earth began to float and converge around it. Then, it hurled the amassed metal at Jinwoo. The monster was confident of victory, certain that a first-tier civilization could not withstand its overwhelming power. When the attack subsided, they saw Jinwoo buried beneath a massive pile of metal. His body was covered in sharp wounds from the metal, yet his sly smile remained. It was a sign that even amidst all this power, Jinwoo was unfazed. Suddenly, he emerged from the wreckage like lightning, scattering the metal in every direction. The monster was shocked by what it witnessed, growing increasingly curious and envious of Jinwoo's strength. Realizing Jinwoo was far more powerful than he had anticipated, the monster launched a devastating attack. But when he looked down, Jinwoo was gone. Suddenly, Jinwoo was right above the monster's head. This maneuver enraged the monster, who tried to grab Jinwoo, but Jinwoo easily dodged every attack. The monster then used its ability to manipulate metal again, throwing massive chunks at Jinwoo. To the monster's astonishment, Jinwoo began using the same ability to control metal. A colossal clash erupted between their powers, resulting in a massive explosion that shook the entire area. Even Lena was stunned by the spectacle. The monster could not believe its eyes, astounded to see Jinwoo wielding the same cosmos power it had. Jinwoo laughed as he always did, saying he was thoroughly enjoying his newfound strength. He then decided to press the attack on the monster, demonstrating one of his special techniques. The monster, unable to comprehend what it was witnessing, tried to gather metal once more. Seizing an opening, Jinwoo launched himself like a bullet. With a single blow to the monster's abdomen, Jinwoo split it in two. As the monster collapsed to the ground, Jinwoo told it that he wasn't imitating anything. He was simply stealing its power. Lena stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Unable to believe that a first-tier human had just defeated a monster from a third-tier civilization. She was certain she had just witnessed the strangest event of her life. Jinwoo was thrilled with the new power he had gained. Turning to Lena, he said, "Let's go and check out the other villains." Lena, feeling equally enthusiastic, grabbed his hand and said she now understood why Jinwoo had come here, to prove his strength. She also mentioned that she knew a place with fighters even stronger than the monsters they had faced. She invited Jinwoo to become Earth's representative at the GSP tournament, a prestigious global event. There, he could showcase his strength against the most powerful monsters. Meanwhile, Mark stood frozen in his spot, unable to believe what he had just witnessed. The entire place had been destroyed before his eyes, and he knew the crazed man he had met earlier was responsible for all of it. Virtus, the GSP judge, arrived and remarked that the situation was entirely different from how Mark had described it. He assumed the alien creature had lost control and caused the destruction. Mark felt anxious and regretted bringing that person along. After inspecting the scene, the judge concluded that someone else must have been involved in this catastrophe. He suspected someone from a more advanced civilization, possibly one specializing in technology, was behind it. Even the pixie units, belonging to their third-tier civilization, had been completely annihilated. Initially confused, Mark felt a sense of relief upon hearing this. He realized it was logically impossible for a human to destroy something as powerful as Pixie, which gave him some comfort. He decided to contact his team leader immediately. Noticing Mark's troubled expression, the judge asked why he looked so concerned. Mark tried to reassure him that he was fine, but the judge could see through his facade. When questioned further, Mark finally admitted he couldn't lie to the judge. He confessed that he was worried about his teammates' safety, given the large-scale destruction. The judge, unsure whether Mark's comrades were still alive, vowed to uncover who was behind it. Mark took the judge's words seriously, and the judge reassured him, saying there was no need to worry as they had the best investigators on the planet. These investigators would use all their capabilities to reconstruct the scene and identify the mastermind behind the chaos. Mark observed the ghost memory device, capable of recreating past events, and remembered hearing about it before. Watching the site being digitally reconstructed, he began to grow nervous, contemplating how to escape the situation. The judge calmed him, stating there was no need for concern, as they were beginning their investigation with mysterious powers and were determined to avenge Mark's teammates. Mark grew increasingly tense and began sweating, feeling his position becoming more precarious. Over the next 30 minutes, he explained everything to Lena, who started piecing the story together. She realized Jinwoo could speak in a language she had never heard before because he had absorbed the Pixie's abilities, gaining both its power and skills. Lena admitted she had never encountered such a power before and speculated that humans might have overlooked abilities like this. She theorized it might be related to lost technology, analyzing the situation, while Jinwoo grew impatient and decided to leave. Lena tried to stop him, asking why he wanted to go alone. Jinwoo replied that he didn't need to rely on her and was still focused on the championship. Lena tried to persuade him, warning he would get lost without her help, but Jinwoo ignored her words and said he could find his way on his own. Lena explained they were no longer in the same world as before, but Jinwoo refused to listen and continued walking. As Jinwoo pressed on, he knew Lena was right, but he was surprised when he came across a massive door. Entering it, he tried to scare Lena into stopping her pursuit, but she kept following him. When Jinwoo stepped into another room, he saw a strange sight before him, wondering what he was looking at. Lena eventually caught up and began explaining that they were now in the 26th century. She said this era, known as the year 2600, was an age of space exploration on Earth. Jinwoo was bewildered, unable to comprehend what was happening. Lena continued, explaining that humanity now interacted with civilizations from distant planets. However, Jinwoo dismissed the importance of dealing with such alien beings. He questioned why humans needed to differentiate between themselves and these creatures. Hearing his remark, Lena asked Jinwoo what he thought about humanity's position in the hierarchy of civilizations. Lena revealed that there are 20 civilizations in the universe, and among them, humans rank last. Jinwoo was shocked to learn that the bearded man who had attacked him earlier was a being stronger than humans. He called humans stupid, which upset Lena. She admitted that humans were indeed ranked last, but urged Jinwoo to stop belittling them. She explained that a 5-tier scale governs inter-civilizational relations, and humans are a first-tier civilization, meaning they are at the very bottom of the list. Although there are other beings in the first tier, humans are the weakest. Jinwoo coldly responded that he didn't care about such evaluations. He stated that if he were in their position, he would focus on gaining power to defeat other civilizations instead of worrying about pointless rankings. Lena then formally asked something of him. Growing irritated, Jinwoo asked what she wanted from him. Realizing Jinwoo wanted to fight stronger beings, Lena mentioned that on this planet called GSP, a world championship battle is held once every 100 years. This tournament features beings far stronger than anyone could imagine. Lena wanted Jinwoo to represent humans and Earth in this championship to fight those powerful beings. Jinwoo confirmed again, asking if she was requesting him to fight for humanity. Lena affirmed, but before she could finish speaking, Jinwoo cut her off and refused. He said he wouldn't let himself be used for a foolish championship just because they had talked briefly. Lena grew frustrated and asked if Jinwoo thought of her as a foolish girl. She eventually apologized, admitting she had been too hasty. She rephrased her request, explaining that if humans performed well in the championship, they would rise in rank. Jinwoo didn't understand why this evaluation was so important, but Lena insisted it wasn't just a number. She elaborated that this ranking significantly impacts humanity's progress. Lena added that the classification was based on something called cosmo-energy, a life force used by beings to measure strength. She explained that there were powerful beings capable of controlling this energy, and that for humans to do the same, they needed to rise to a higher tier. The problem, however, was that humans wouldn't stand a chance against the other beings in the tournament. Lena wanted him to represent them and achieve victory for humanity. She explained that such a victory would grant humanity access to knowledge otherwise impossible to obtain. Jinwoo asked her to clarify. Lena explained that the knowledge humanity had accumulated so far was the result of years of effort. When humans ventured into space, they began discovering fragments of information from other civilizations. However, all they had learned so far was just a tiny fraction of the knowledge spread by a massive being at the edge of the universe. The powerful civilization controlling this knowledge was called Indi-Sabian. They are the only civilization in the 5th tier and the organizers of the tournament. Lena lamented the unfairness of the situation, as these civilizations distributed knowledge unevenly. Jinwoo called her explanation boring and accused her of trying to use him to achieve her goals. She admitted he was right but begged him to listen, saying it concerned humanity's future. Jinwoo remained indifferent and uninterested. Realizing it was futile, Lena thought she'd have to find someone who shared her beliefs. However, she knew she wouldn't find anyone foolish enough to risk their life to help others. Suddenly, a judge appeared and, without wasting a second, used a mysterious power to execute a death sentence. Jinwoo's body disintegrated into dust, and a being called Virus announced that the sentence had been carried out. Even Virus was surprised that a low-tier civilization was capable of destroying someone like Pixie. The judge then turned to Lena, stating she would also be judged for being involved in Pixie's death. Lena, overwhelmed and helpless, was unable to fight back against the judge. Suddenly, someone behind them began groaning in pain and insulting the judge, calling him weak. It was Mad Demon, whose body started regenerating and rising again. Lena was shocked to see he was still alive. Mad Demon was furious and demanded an explanation from the judge about why he had put him in such a miserable condition. Virus, also shocked to see his recovery, warned the judge not to make another move or risk destruction. On C Street in Sector 3 of Planet GSP, the bustling crowd carried on as usual. Beings from various worlds, in all shapes and sizes, moved along, unconcerned. In the midst of the crowd, residents of Planet Pigo gathered to cheer for their representative. A child who had been previously bullied by Pixie shared his happiness, telling how an Earth girl had helped him while clutching his balloon. Jurg and Collage heard those words, and were shocked to learn that a human from Earth was a greater hero than they had ever imagined. They expressed their gratitude to the one who had helped them. Suddenly, they saw a man dressed in the same brown robe as theirs, smiling as he said, "What's this? What are you discussing without inviting me?" Rogue immediately recognized the voice and responded, identifying him as the youngest among them who had once faced significant challenges while supporting their representatives. Mala rushed forward, threw her balloon aside, and hugged Bannon, the hero of Pigo. Bannon lifted the girl into his arms and hugged her warmly. Jurg asked if he was all right after his tough battle against the living fire. Bannon assured them he was fine and joked that if they needed a fight now, he was ready to go. His victory elevated Pigo's ranking to 4,800. But before they could say another word, a massive explosion occurred on the street. A virus emerged from within a building, spreading chaos instantly. People began running for their lives. The residents of Pigo learned that the judges were pursuing them, which clarified the situation. Mala grew nervous and clung to Bannon's hand, trying to voice her fears. However, before she could finish her sentence, the destruction spread rapidly, forcing everyone to flee for safety. Amid the chaos, Lena, the leader of the promotion team, stood her ground, although visibly unsettled. She couldn't take her eyes off the metallic cables from the debris that Jinwoo had destroyed in his attempt to trap the judge as part of his revenge. Jinwoo used the Fairy Cosmo's power to create a metal prison around the judge, but the prison began to crack from the relentless explosions within. Furious, Jinwoo declared that the judge was far stronger than he had anticipated. The judge retaliated by shattering the metal prison with ease. In that moment, curiosity overwhelmed someone's thoughts. They wondered intensely what exactly was unfolding, even as they saw it clearly in flashbacks. Still, they couldn't believe their eyes. The virus judge wanted to understand how a human from Earth could absorb the fairy's magic power. If such a person truly existed, they posed a far greater threat than previously imagined. At that point, Jinwoo couldn't hide his arrogance. He asked the judge if he was beginning to tire of the situation, his eyes alight with madness and his legs charged with power. Jinwoo launched a ferocious attack at lightning speed, striking with enough force to seemingly split the ground. However, his blow landed on empty air. Yet, the great demon wasn't finished. Explosions began hindering efforts to secure the 3 artifact pieces, and people scrambled to escape. Despite the danger, Lena wanted to see the great demon up close. She was nearly within reach, but before she could move, a strong hand pulled her back, and something covered her mouth to silence her. It was Bainin, who calmly reassured her that they had come to save her without the hero Bigu knowing. George followed the same path from behind. Lena quickly realized that Bainin was the same fighter they had seen on stage earlier. Frustrated by his people's inability to follow simple instructions, Bainin was reassured by Rogue, who confirmed that Maf was safe with Koloko. They needed to move quickly and escape. Amid all the turmoil, the hero of Bigu refused to stay idle. He resolved to face the chaos head-on as a way to repay Lena for what she had done. His culture was built on the principle of repaying debts. Before they could escape, Lena protested, demanding to be released. She told Bainin that if he truly wanted to save someone, he should save the human fighting against the judge. Though Bainin had just secured a victory and a rank promotion, he viewed such a feat as impossible. The judges in the GSP were true monsters. Those who reached the tournament finals were the strongest, and it was inconceivable that a human from Earth could challenge them. Logically, that was true. However, Jinwoo was different. The virus judge shifted his focus to the great demon, deciding to monitor its movements in secret, as he had another technique prepared. The intense strikes of Judge continued to grow in magnitude, reaching an unstable level, almost akin to a nuclear explosion. Sure enough, the blast annihilated everything around it, resembling the devastation of a nuclear bomb. Judge was confident it was enough to end Jinwoo. However, he was wrong. Jinwoo managed to close the distance, employing another technique, and prepared for a new attack. Judge thought he had a clear path to counter the attack, but Jinwoo surprised him with his speed. Judge tried to defend quickly, generating a small burst of energy that erupted once again. The explosion turned into another assault, showing just how much Judge underestimated this human as something insignificant. Meanwhile, the citizens of Bigu were still fleeing from the battle. Lena refused to give up so easily. She begged them to release her, wanting to help Bainin save Jinwoo rather than prioritizing her own safety. Despite everything, Bainin was adamant that the hero would not prevail in his fight against Judge. The rogues knew they were no match for someone like Judge and had no chance against such immense power. Their disbelief stemmed from a principle they held dear: always repaying debts. That principle had safeguarded their planet for generations. However, Gerg disagreed with it. Suddenly, they were confronted by something strange: fiery debris falling before them. The object burned so intensely that it appeared to be charred wood plummeting from the sky in an odd manner. But it wasn't wood, it was Mech Janio. Not far from where they stood, Judge Virus appeared, as expected. He was hunting his target, Shuruk. Without hesitation, he warned Bainin to flee immediately, leaving the humans behind. If the situation worsened, they could be caught in the battle and end up as nothing more than charred firewood. However, Yarrow knew this was more than just a minor explosion or flame to kill such a colossal demon. Lena suspected that this man might be extraordinary. Because of that, she told Bainin they should closely observe the situation. As anticipated, Jainal began screaming in agony. His nervous system seemed to reactivate, causing him to feel his body burning away. Gerg and Bainin had never witnessed anything like this before. The man's body was destroyed down to half its form, engulfed in flames. Yet, despite this, his body continued regenerating.